At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability, ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
All right, joining me now is Mark Mitchell. But just in case you think you had a very rough day or rough week, check out this poor guy. Look at the guy up there by the red light. Up. Ooh. Hopefully he's okay. Good thing he was in a harness. But watch it again. He's telling this guy, go around, but I don't think the guy can see him. There's the vision and the ability to see in some those cabs is not what people always think they are. Wow. Wow. Anyway, for those of you that maybe thought you had a bad week or a rough day, there you go. Joining me now is Mark Mitchell. Mark, how are you doing?
Better than that guy.
Yeah, poor guy. That's in Louisiana. Hopefully he's okay tonight. So it's been an interesting couple weeks. How is the right direction polling doing for President Trump? I do want to get into several things that you're covering, but how is the right direction polling going for President Trump?
Pretty much, I think everything that happened in the Middle East was just a tiny little bit of a blip. I think he lost some support with independents, and right direction was up about 48% about a week and a half ago. We had a couple overnights where it was like 43. It's averaging out at about 45 or 46 right now. The headline is still really, really, really stupidly high. So I don't think there's any real problem. And
why do you say stupidly high?
Oh, this represents a new era in representative democracy compared to recent presidential cycles. I mean, right direction, wrong track. Right direction barely got out of the 20s under Obama. And of course, there was a financial crisis that had something to do with that. For most of Biden's term, it was between 25 and 35. And then all of a sudden, when Trump gets into office, it shoots up to, we actually had a week where it was at 50%, meaning a majority of voters in the country say the country's headed in the right direction. That's never happened before in all of our polling history. We've had some high numbers before, but they've pretty much all been during Trump's first term. We had a couple of weeks where it got to 47, 48%. But now, for the first time, a majority of Americans think the country's headed in the right direction. That was about 3 weeks ago now. And we also had, for the first time, a couple of different weekly readings where right direction was positive, meaning more people think it's in the right direction than the wrong track. So if you ask me, my opinion, I'm a pollster. I think voters should get what they want. And I think there should be basically report cards, because voters have been getting screwed over so many times. And if you were going to pick like one report card, you would probably pick right direction polling.
Well, this is also something you've been tweeting about, I saw today. Who counts? Trump poised to try to remove non-citizens from the census. Well, this is important because this will impact, congressional lines and congressional numbers, I should say, in the House, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's what this war has been about. Biden lost because he created essentially an invasion at the southern border. There was a lot of bad stuff that happened under Biden's presidency, but all the vision and optics of people just pouring across the southern border unchecked, fentanyl and violent crime coming to every city, all of the optics about criminal aliens being given open arms, welcome, taxpayer money funding, and all this other stuff. It definitely, punctuated what was a very horrible term. And they were doing that for a reason. I think this is it, because there's been some analysis that has shown that the number of increases in the California registration, for instance, voter registration, is tied to the number of increases in foreign-born Californians. And we've actually seen non-citizens voting in elections before. The question is how much, and nobody knows. And then also the fact that non-citizens were picked up in the last census. Seth Keshel has some really good analysis that shows that just based on the last election, he thinks that 16 seats were taken from Republicans because of these people that are now padding out blue cities. There's a reason they have these sanctuary state and sanctuary city policies. It's like to attract all of these people to the right places so that they can get increased representation in Congress. Now, all of a sudden, is the 2030 census, in the crosshairs? I think you have a situation where illegal aliens are self-deporting left and right. We've had the very first tick down in the number of illegal aliens in the country. ICE is focusing very heavily on those blue areas. There's probably a very good reason for that. And so this whole thing is unraveling underneath the Democrats. And that's, I think, one of the reasons I can surmise that you have Gavin Newsom out there on the front lines trying to act all histrionic to combat ICE and do everything they can in order to prevent this unraveling of their decades-long plan.
Well, they have, according to your polling, a big chunk of Americans behind them. 47% approve of sanctuary states, not just cities, states.
Yeah. Right. This is a tough one, and we have to approach this with a little bit of nuance. And I can read specifically the question so everybody has it in their heads. So-called sanctuary states have policies that restrict state and local officials from cooperating with federal immigration authorities. Do you approve or disapprove of sanctuary policies? So what the agreement here is a plurality agreement, 47% to 44%, that states can have policies to restrict state authorities from cooperating with federal immigration authorities. So there is an aspect of the question that gives us this result, let's acknowledge, but also there's the realities of the Overton window in which the Democrats have been ubiquitously normalizing sanctuary cities and states for years now, and that matters. The Overton window has been rapidly shifting left. And you might look around and say, well, you know, there must be the most hatred ever of these sanctuary policies. And it's not the case. It is the case because of the 4 years of Biden's administration that a strong majority supports mass deportations. But because of this normalization, actually higher numbers than ever support these sanctuary policies, at least as measured by that question. And that's kind of the rub that the right is in, is that the left has done a very good job on coordinating, on messaging, on funding itself, on keeping all of the little cats herded in order to systematically make the country shift left. Except for Donald Trump, there hasn't really been an effective operation on the right to do the opposite.
Wow. Let's go to this next one. 67% suspect climate change makes summer worse. Wait a minute. I thought we were finally reaching a point where more and more people weren't buying into this garbage. This is not a good sign.
No, it's not. No, a lot of these things still have weight. And so if you ask people questions about how serious climate change is, you're going to get a lower number. If you ask people questions about whether you're willing to pay increased taxes, you're going to get a really small number. But you also have to acknowledge that people are being broadly indoctrinated about things like climate change, about things like, you know, Iranian nuclear weapons, about all these things, about how evil Vladimir Putin is. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that every institution has been co-opted, and they all across the board essentially say the narratives that support the establishment. And the establishment has wanted to wrestle control, to use its grip, to cozy up with government, to increase its power, to create grift everywhere. And climate change is part of that. And it hasn't been reversed. People still believe that. The only thing is that people got pissed off about Biden because he made it unaffordable to live in America. And that is more important to them right now.
All right. What else are you seeing that, you know, was a big shock to you this week?
Well, I mean, we have some brand new Iranian numbers back, and we've been pulling on this a lot. And I can tell you that actually, I think that this whole situation with the Middle East is broadly popular. 84% agreed that Iran should never have a nuclear weapon. 57% going into it agreed with the idea of the U.S. striking Iran to prevent it from having a nuclear weapon. After the fact that we did the strike was also plus 20 almost. And then we also ask, well, okay, would you support additional support from the U.S. Air Force or Navy in order to assist Israel in an ongoing war? We use the word war against Iran. That was supported by a plurality, 49% to something in the mid 40s. But then finally we asked, well, what about boots on the ground? And that people were like, no bueno. Only 33% supported that. But back today, if the United States military becomes involved in the war between Israel and Iran. And again, like, let's acknowledge that Trump says it's over. Israel is taking a victory lap, presumably says it's over. Which is closer to your opinion? The U.S. should only target Iran's nuclear weapon sites, or the U.S. should try for a regime change to end the Islamic dictatorship in Iran. And nuclear weapon sites wins 57-24. So fewer than 1 in 4 U.S. likely voters think that we should be involved in regime change. It's not popular. Only 27% of Republicans, only 21% of independents, 25% of Democrats. So the idea of us getting entangled further in the Middle East is not popular, unless it's a continuation of basically these strikes. My personal opinion is that we've probably done a pretty good job of making sure that that's not an issue anymore. And hopefully Donald Trump can get refocused on this domestic policy agenda, because the Republicans need all the help they can get. This big, beautiful bill stuff is wild.
So where are we going for 2026? Anything that gives you an indication of midterms?
Well, I think maybe 2 or 3 days after the election in November, I was on with Alex Jones and he asked me, what's the future of the left? And I conjectured then that they were going to get leftier and cultier, but also smaller. And that's kind of what we see happen. Look at this New York mayoral Democrat primary with Mamdani winning by a massive amount. And obviously, you have the whole thing where Cuomo was pretty bad candidate, right? The stuff that this guy's saying. I mean, the idea that the biggest and most powerful city in the United States is going to have a guy that's going to basically take government control of grocery stores, take all the high crime areas and replace police with social workers, raise taxes on the wealthy and all these corporations, when almost all these Fortune 500 companies have some footprint in New York. That's wild. Like, I don't know how that's going to go. And who's filling up all the airtime on the Democrat side? Gavin Newsom, AOC, Bernie Sanders, Jasmine Crockett, people like Rashida Tlaib. You just don't really see a lot of moderates out there. And so I guess they've decided, well, there's Trump, and Trump has got a big tent that keeps getting bigger, and we'll just continue to be the shrinking tent. And somehow that's going to help us win elections. And I really don't get the mentality, unless they plan to do some accelerationist stuff, or maybe this is what they have to do to raise money because all of their money sources are from absolute radical wackos. Maybe it's because their funding sources have largely been cut off. But for 2026, here's the situation. Republicans won +3 in the national popular vote for the House back in the fall. We were exactly right. I think we were only like 0.1 or 0.2 off. Right now, our generic ballot, which was a relatively small poll, had Democrats +1. I think the truth is probably Republicans +1 or 2. It'll probably stay there because people have no other choice but to vote for Republicans if they want sanity in control of the government. Unfortunately, what I can't predict is the Republicans seem to be messing stuff up right now. We almost have more impeachment resolutions out of Democrats in the House than we have signed legislation out of Republicans in the House. That's kind of messed up. And again, I think this big, beautiful bill was fumbled from the beginning. Voters wanted the government shut down by a majority and an absolute hatchet taken to every part of it. And this was based on the sentiment that they saw coming out of Doge. People hate the federal government. They think it's super wasteful and even fraudulent. We even have a strong majority saying that the government is fraudulent and that they want massive change in Washington, D.C. and not business as usual. And what do you see out of Republicans? Oh, well, this is how the system works. This is how a bill gets made, and it's all this negotiation. And yeah, you're not going to get any cuts, and you're gonna get a few things from Trump's agenda, and you're gonna like it. And it's too hard because of all these rules. Voters don't want to hear that crap. If voters cared about rules, they wouldn't have elected Donald Trump. And I think it's going to catch up with them. It's just a question of, are the Democrats even electable?
At what point do we finally have a Tea Party? People say, I'm done paying for a corrupt government that's full of a bunch of literally gangsters and fraudulent individuals paying money under the table to their favorite NGO, their friends, the kickbacks. I mean, at what point do the American people say, I'm out?
Yeah, here's the problem, though. Right direction polling's higher than it's ever been. You know what I mean? Like, that's the rub, is that we're kind of in this, like, era of maximum anger, but also like somewhat complacency. I don't even know how to measure this. And we've seen
it almost seems like a contradictory, doesn't it?
Yeah. And at the same time, largest nationwide protests that we've ever seen in our entire history, too.
So Americans are being kind of schizophrenic in their polling.
Well, some of it's that the protests were AstroTurf, but I mean, the idea that people wanted Trump, he got a majority of the vote. He's in office. He's doing the things he said. You're going to get higher right direction polling. The problem is that I don't know what happens between now and 2026. There's a lot of wild things out of nowhere that could happen. There's a lot of positive things that can happen. We've seen more and more increasing just in the last couple of weeks. Election integrity news, and we've seen stuff about criminal accountability and going after these people, like the kind of letters that were sent to Colorado Secretary of State, things like that. Really good signs. And all that stuff would probably be somewhat disruptive to the midterms, as well as who knows what, for instance, California House races look like if they get rid of 2 or 3 million illegal aliens out of California.
Hold right there. A little bit more, including a clip from Donald Trump today, again, showing that he's doing what the people asked. Don't go away.
Consumers often ask, what should I expect when I take the Bella Grace Elixir? And the answer's varied. It really depends on what your health and wellness needs are. I would consider this as your foundational core product for a whole range of health and wellness issues. Let me give you a few examples. If you're a little bit older and you have some joint health issues, some problems with mobility and discomfort, the elixir is going to be your best friend. If you have some skin health issues, wrinkles, hydration, aging, all of those elements are going to be benefited from the elixir, including age spots. Now, if you're in a younger demographic, maybe visual health is where you need some assistance. Eye fatigue, dry eyes, all of those are going to be benefited by the elixir. It's a core product because it benefits so many.
We live in uncertain times. In fact, we live at a time when our own governments all over the world are warning us that there could be big problems with our power grid. World War III seems to be right on the horizon. Let me ask you this. Do you have a satellite phone? Should communications go down with cell towers? Do you have a satellite phone to get a hold of that college student or your spouse who travels, whatever it might be, to get a hold of your senior adult parents? We have satellite phones at worldviewtalk.com, and you get the satellite phone for free when you sign up for their very reasonable payment programs for the service. Sign up for the service with a reasonable contract, get the satellite phone for free. Worldviewtalk.com. You'll also find they have, well, what I now have, which is a solar generator. Yeah, I have a gas generator, an LP propane generator, but what if that goes down? I want to back up to my backup. So I now have a solar generator as well. You'll find them at worldviewtalk.com. Check it out today, worldviewtalk.com. Welcome back. Glad you're with us, worldviewtube.com, worldviewtube.com, Brandon House Live. Talking about right direction, here is a clip by President Trump this afternoon, doing exactly what the American people elected him to do. A lot of them, millions, 77 million or so? Listen to this.
So sad. We're going to fully fund the final sections of border wall, impose a new remittance tax on money sent back to foreign countries, and dramatically increase deportations to a bare minimum of 1 million illegal aliens per year. And what we're doing is we're really going after the criminal aliens, of which we have plenty to work with. People say, well, that's a lot, isn't it? Well, remember, these countries are very smart. They're headed up by people I know. In almost all cases, they're very smart people, and they have the people of great common sense. They're not sending the good people out. They're sending the bad people out, and they put them into caravans. I think I came up with that name, but somebody did. It's a great name, a caravan. Thousands and sometimes as many as 30,000 people walking right into our country.
Well, there you go. That's this afternoon. Mark?
Yeah, I think that's great. That's exactly what people want. They want these people gone because of the economic impact that it's had on Americans. Middle class has been hollowed out. We have only 22% of U.S. likely voters thinking that today's children will be better off than their parents. And we've heard all of the things about the demographic collapse. What's wild is I actually looked at gender and age. And the biggest rift in America is between 30 to 39-year-old men and women who are 35 points apart politically. And that's just absolutely a crisis. There's a mental health crisis. There's an affordability crisis. Everything broke under Joe Biden, and it was because of this invasion. And now Donald Trump is fixing it, and he's using broad spectrum actions. It's not just the wall. It's the wall plus an additional border patrol. It's now they're using these remittances. I've been calling for this for a long time. I was just looking. November 18th, I said that we should have a Social Security or work permit required to avoid a 50% remittance tax. This is going to massively increase self-deportations. And also, it's probably going to change the equation about what illegal immigration looks like for people coming to America, because we know how much of those people are probably being human trafficked, and the remittances are going back to basically pay off blackmailers and things like that. So this is definitely a shot across the bow at illegal immigration. And I would love for them to go one step further. This is what I would perfectly love to play out. We have a federal E-Verify system. 22 states have now passed it into law within their own states because the federal government will not do it. And I've been told it's because basically Republican big business interests love their slave labor, and those interests are more important than Republican voters when it comes to Capitol Hill. I would love to see a Republican Congress step up and pass a one-page bill that federally mandates E-Verify across the nation, and then get rid of the filibuster to ram it through the Senate. That would increase some self-deportations right there. And that's the kind of thing that people support. E-Verify is overwhelmingly, we're talking about 70% to like 20% kind of numbers here. People are like, why don't we do this? Same thing with paper ballots, same thing with basically everything, with election integrity, audits, IDs, all this stuff could be shoved through. And it's like, again, this comes down to like Trump has to unilaterally do this stuff with executive action. Republicans are failing open on the best agenda they've ever had. Donald Trump gave them the best agenda. All I have to do is step up, break a little bit of a sweat. And he's out there leading on this. Like, when was the last time you heard like Republican congressional representatives coming out and calling for strong action like this? They just don't do it. There's a few of them. That's it. So he's playing a completely different game than Congress. And that it's so hard to predict how that will play out in 2026. Probably will continue to be a Republican advantage, although the question is how much enthusiasm will there be to turn out since Trump's not on the ballot? And will the Democrats pull it together? And that, it is possible, but right now it doesn't look like they're going to, right? And so weird time, but Americans, again, are getting what they want. All of this chaos that you've heard about over the last couple of weeks, it hasn't done anything to Donald Trump's numbers. He's still +3 from an approval rating, which is higher than the +2 he got in the fall. He's been basically averaging about +5 for the last month. And this Iran-Israel situation didn't do it. These protests didn't hurt him at all. In fact, the stuff that Gavin Newsom was doing made his numbers go up. And here we are. So Trump's going to continue to be Trump. Republicans are going to continue to be Republicans in Congress. And it's impossible to predict what that's going to mean in November of 2026. And that's, I hate to say that they're all existential, but that's probably a super existential election.
So in closing, J.D. Vance, anyone else you see? Maybe Pete Hegseth. Who do you see? Marco Rubio. Who do you see as the strong contender? Are any of your polls showing anything as to who could be the strong contender in 2028?
We haven't done the huge gamut of names that we have done for Democrats with Republicans yet, although we have done some matchups with J.D. Vance. And we probably will, but he should be the heir apparent. Like, it really should be that way. And maybe it'll change. Maybe he won't be for whatever reason. He doesn't, in the matchups we've done, he hasn't completely captured all of Trump's numbers yet, but it is early. And then most recently, just a week ago, we asked J.D. Vance favorability and got like a +9 with a 52% favorable, which was exactly Trump's numbers. So I think people are starting to wake up that he's going to be good. And I personally think that he's got the right set of policies. I think he's going to be an extension of the Trump administration, but in a different, potentially more organized way with more message discipline. We'll have to wait and see. Those other folks, I don't have polling to support it. All I know is that, listen, nobody came close to Trump at all. in any of the polling in the primary, not even really Ron DeSantis. In my polling, Ron DeSantis never got closer to 25 points, and that was before he actually declared. And once he declared, his numbers just plunged for a lot of reasons. Everybody else was like low teens or single digits. And so I think that would probably be the same. I think Rubio's done a very good job, but at the end of the day, there's an aspect of charisma that Rubio always looks to me like he's personally trying to do a really good job answering a question as technically best as possible. And it doesn't necessarily read to me as like empathy in a way that JD Vance, I think, has done a better job mastering. And so I think that he's probably going to be, and listen, the establishment's going to try and run a million people that are all establishment picks, right? And we'll have to see what that looks like and who those people are. But we've seen what happened in 2016 and those people don't tend to really hold up. And so it should be JD Vance's to lose. I think he can grow into his numbers. And I do think he's true MAGA, but you never know. Something could happen. There could be a mask off moment. We just have to wait and see. Hegseth, I think he's doing great. His numbers are okay, but I just don't see it.
All right, there you go. Let's show you where you can follow what Mark's up to. There it is right there. Mark Mitchell with Rasmussen. RasmussenReports.com is the website. You want to follow him. It's Honest Pollster. At Honest Pollster. Hey, by the way, didn't I see something last week about Donald Trump raging about the pollster at Fox News? Did you see that?
Yeah, he does it all the time. And every time I do it, he does it. I tweet on my feed at Fox News, accurate polling is only one DM away. And they haven't taken me up on it. Basically, all Fox's primetime hosts crap all over their pollsters too, and they won't even use them. But the Fox News stuff, not the headline talking heads, the news stuff is forced to use these people, and they're garbage. They poll like CNN, they poll like CBS, they poll like ABC News, Reuters, Ipsos. They're bad.
Well, I'm glad we have you, Honest Pollster, at Honest Pollster. That's his moniker there. That's his handle at X. Mark Mitchell. Mark is also going to be a keynote speaker at our 22nd annual conference coming up this fall outside of Memphis, Tennessee, in beautiful Collierville, Tennessee. Full details at worldviewstore.com. You can walk up and talk to Mark, shake his hand, have him, sign a book. Have you written a book, Mark?
Not yet. I should. I have to.
Yeah, you should.
I'm too busy writing tweets.
Okay, you can print out a tweet and have him sign it. But you'll be able to meet him in person, hear him speak. He's going to do some exclusive polling for us with his presentation on what is the worldview of Americans. It's going to be amazing. Yeah, and again, this October, come and join us along with Mark and Gordon Chang and Sidney Powell and so many others, worldviewstore.com. In the meantime, check out Honest Pollster at Honest Pollster on X. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Fun conversation.
Indeed it is. Mark checking in tonight.